A woman who helped a 26-year-old man pose as a teenager so he could go to school for free and sexually assault teenagers at Nebraska high schools has taken her own plea deal in this case. We have the latest on the bizarre and complicated scheme to target young girls. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Who could forget this story, huh? A grown man was busted for pretending to be a teenager attending high school. It's a bad version of 21 Jump Street because what are we talking about? We're talking about 26-year-old, or then 26-year-old, he's 27 years old now, Zachary Scheich, who used this ruse to not only get nude photos from girls, but also sexually assaulted them. Now, he ended up taking a plea deal back in September. He's likely going to spend the rest of his life in prison. He was sentenced to spend 85 to 120 years behind bars, and his first shot at parole is not going to be for 40 years. But now, another adult, a woman named Angela Navarro, is accused of helping Scheich pull off this scheme. And she just took a plea herself. But this time, she was facing a felony charge, and she just pled guilty to 2 misdemeanor charges. So to talk more about this, I want to bring in a trial attorney who specializes in sexual assault cases, friend of the show, Parker Stinar. Parker, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Before we even dig into the details of this, your reaction overall to this story, is this something you have seen before in your practice?
So it's shocking. It reminds you of a bad 1980s movie where you have an adult or undercover cop dressing up as a high school student for a specific
21
purposes.
Jump Street. 21 Jump Street.
But here it's outrageous because rather than finding a crime or a criminal or whatnot, this individual used it to sexually assault and sexually abuse minors. And on top of it, like you just stated, we have someone that enabled this conduct. Another adult that knew this perverse behavior was going on, posing as a mother for a high school student who's really 27 to allow this conduct to take place. It's horrific. It's disgusting. I hope our criminal justice system gets this right. But sadly, these types of actions and this type of behavior isn't new across the country. It's unfortunate that this behavior takes on, but what's more horrific here is there's always going to be bad actors like this individual. But the woman that enables it, in my opinion, oftentimes that conduct is even worse.
Keep that in mind as we talk about what happened with her. I want to quickly thank Upside for sponsoring this episode of Sidebar. They helped to bring this really, really crazy story to you. And also talking Upside, they have a special Black Friday promotion. Now, Upside's great. It's a free app that gets you cash back on daily essentials like gas, groceries, food. So when I pump my gas or I go for lunch, I can potentially use the free Upside app to get cash back. And this is real cash back. It's money that appears in your Upside app that you can transfer right into your bank account. So once you have the Upside app, you claim an offer for whatever you're buying. You pay as usual using your debit or credit card. You follow steps in the app, you get paid. And you can use it at all different kinds of places like Shell, Mobile, 7-Eleven, Taco Bell. And here's the Black Friday kicker. If you download Upside right now by clicking the link in the description and use code BF10, you get a $10 bonus on your first purchase. This is a Black Friday special, one time only, $10 cashback bonus on your first purchase when you use our special code BF10. Okay, but back to this. Let's dive into this a little bit. So prosecutors in Lincoln, Nebraska, they say Zachary Scheich managed to blend in with students at a local high school for 54 days before he got caught. And as I mentioned, Scheich took a plea deal where he would plead no contest to charges of child enticement with electronic communication, generation of child pornography, attempted first-degree sexual assault, and first-degree sexual assault. In exchange, 10 other charges were dropped. Now, law enforcement says that Scheich had come up with this scheme in 2022 when he first enrolled at Lincoln Northwest High School as a junior transfer student under the name Zach Hess, and then the next spring, he transferred to Lincoln Southeast High School as a junior. Here's the thing. Scheich had already graduated from that school. Yeah, in 2015. Here's what his actual yearbook photo looked like then. So how did he manage to pull this off? How did he enroll in not only one, but 2 high schools, right? That's the big question. Well, authorities say he had this accomplice, 23-year-old Angela Navarro, and she pretended to be Danielle Hess, Zach Hess's mother, which got to say is interesting because she is actually younger than him. But yet, she used fake paperwork, including a fake birth certificate, immunization records, to enroll her son. Now, Dr. Matt Larson, Associate Superintendent for Education Services for Lincoln Public Schools, He spoke about those records at a news conference in 2023.
This individual provided a birth certificate, a high school transcript, immunization records, and a physical from a clinic. As it turns out, all those appear to be fraudulent, but those documents were provided. Same documents we would request of any student that enrolled in our system. The documents are not verified. We take students' words for these documents. We're reviewing all of our enrollment processes right now and considering ways in which we can verify the identity of a student for whom we might have questions.
So Parker, how crazy is that? First of all, how, the amount of effort they went in to do this, but to get the fake paperwork, these fraudulent documents, how crazy is that?
Well, criminals and sexual predators, unfortunately, are smart. Many times they obsess about their actions, how to achieve their goals, how to abuse these young individuals. So it's no surprise to me that they went to the efforts of forging these documents, that they devised this scheme and this plan, hoping to get away with it. And sadly, for his motive of being able to sexually abuse individuals, he was successful. Fortunately, through our criminal justice system investigation, sheriff's department, he was arrested, and now he's going to spend a lot of time with the rest of his life behind bars. But what's most shocking for me as a civil litigator is looking at the school, looking at the individuals that reviewed these documents, the individuals that met with his mother, and also the individuals that were his teachers, not understanding, not knowing that they have a 27-year-old in their classroom, not knowing, not understanding that this individual was at the school 9 years earlier. Were there no admin or teachers that were at the school in 2015 when he was a student? And that's what's most shocking. Now, every single state has different governmental immunity provisions. And what I mean by that is allowing the school to be also held accountable through our civil justice system for what appears to be their blatant negligence, if not gross negligence here.
And let's get into a little bit about what happened, because the idea of him just getting enrolled is shocking. And as you said, the teacher's not noticing. Well, according to court documents, once Scheich was enrolled in high school, he ended up befriending teenage girls, all the while, again, pretending to be a 17-year-old boy. Now, investigators say they found a cell phone that he used to communicate with several minors through texting, through social media. Scheich was accused of sending sexually explicit messages to 13 and 14-year-old girls, encouraging them to meet up for sex, send them new photos. He even sent one of them money for the pictures. That's what we're talking about here. And Scheich, was even brazen enough to meet the families of these minor-aged girls. But you know what? That ended up being his undoing, because when some of the parents saw him, they got suspicious. They reported it. It launched an investigation. And at the time of his arrest, Scheich admitted to pretending to be a teenager, enrolling in the schools, messaging with the girls, but he denied sexually assaulting them. So Parker, going back to you, talk to me about, when you think about this evidence that they had against him, why do you think he ended up pleading no contest? Was it just the evidence was too much, and I guess the advantage for him is to have a shot in 40 years at parole when he'll be in his 60s?
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising, and this takes place in the vast, vast majority, over 95% of criminal matters, where someone sees ultimately what the worst case scenario could be, and they enter into a plea. And here you have an individual that is going to spend decades behind bars regardless, but perhaps he's hoping with good behavior or other exceptions that he can get out maybe after 15 years or 20 years or whatnot, and knowing that if he took it to the extent of a trial and ultimately left it up to the individuals or people of his peers, that his sentencing would be far, far worse than what he'd be able to plead to.
What do you take away from the fact that he was, using text messages, social media platforms, specifically Snapchat, to communicate with these girls, flirt with them, solicit sexual contact? And in some cases, he was sending money, right? Talk about those platforms that are being used here, because it's not like you have a situation where it's a chat room and there's a stranger, or there might be an understanding that the person's an adult. These are girls who thought he was their student. He was their classmate.
Well, unfortunately, it's a classic behavior of the predator. Learn who you're preying upon, learn their behavior, learn what interests they have, or different ways that you can groom them. And here for these individuals, I'm sure as a 27-year-old adult, he knew what types of compliments to give these young minor women. He knew that giving money or being overly friendly with them or offering to meet their family members would be the types of actions to get them to give in to his predatory behavior and demands. And unfortunately, what we're seeing across the country with social media platforms, TikTok, Facebook, no longer less relevant, but Instagram, is it's so easy for predators to send 10 messages or 100 messages and really cast their net and see what types of responses they get back. And sadly, it's platforms like these that these young girls or young individuals hide from their parents. And they're able to send a quick snap and hope it deletes, not knowing really at 13, 14 years old, the actions that they've done, the events that are taking place, and that sadly they are being preyed upon.
That is the scary part about that. But I want to now go from this guy to Navarro, right? Because this is the question. He probably couldn't have done this on his own. So you think about what he did and now you think about Navarro. When police contacted her last summer and she should have known the jig was up, she apparently continued to insist that Scheich was really Zach Hess and that she was his mom, Danielle. So according to a probable cause affidavit, it states, Navarro was interviewed and admitted to going to a meeting with a school counselor to register Scheich for classes, pretending to be his mother. Navarro also admitted she was the one who spoke with LPS administration when they confronted her about Scheich's real identity. When Navarro was arrested, she was charged originally with felony criminal impersonation. She was facing up to 4 years in prison. But now she has this plea deal. The charge was downgraded to misdemeanor criminal impersonation, and she's also entered a guilty plea to misdemeanor child abuse. Her plea agreement says that Navarro, quote, did negligently cause or permit a minor child to be placed in a situation that endangered his or her life or physical or mental health, contrary to the form of the statutes in such cases made and provided in and against the peace and dignity of the state of Nebraska. And by the way, she is scheduled to be sentenced in January. But Parker, I can understand why she would want a deal like this. Misdemeanor, not a felony. But why move away from a felony charge if you're the prosecutors? I looked up the law on this, and I think this is what happened. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the statute says, with respect to criminal impersonation, a person commits the crime of criminal impersonation if he or she pretends to be a representative of some person or organization and doesn't act in his or her fictitious capacity with the intent to gain a pecuniary benefit for himself, herself, or another, and to deceive or harm another. It is a felony if that thing of value that's obtained or attempted to be obtained was $5,000 or more. It's a misdemeanor if it's $500 to $1,500. So is this just a matter of maybe what money she was expecting in return or for him to get in return? I think that's the only thing, because it's pretty egregious conduct.
I absolutely agree. It's outrageous conduct. And I think, sadly, it's a shame on our criminal justice system that she's allowed to enter into a plea deal. When you look at the sentencing for the misdemeanor, she may only spend a year in jail. And who knows that on good behavior if it's shorter than that period of time. There are certainly some cases where it makes sense for a prosecutor to offer a plea deal. And like I stated earlier, the vast majority of time, the criminal will accept a plea deal. This is the type of situation when you're looking at misdemeanor, a year or less in prison for her actions, or a felony. When you're that prosecutor, this is your case. This is your opportunity to stand up for your community, your state, and against criminals who participate and enable in the sexual abuse of individuals. Now, if this was a simple impersonation case where a business, unfortunately, was frauded out of $5,000 or $10,000 or the numbers you referenced, I understand perhaps the strength of that case and the benefit of a plea. But for events of criminal sexual assault, this is not an area where a prosecutor should let up and allow someone like her to get away with this at a misdemeanor level with minimal prison time. And unfortunately, this is not a stamp on her record for the rest of her life the way a felony charge would be.
Yeah, I don't have a greater explanation for why that happened. But look, I'll tell you what, going back to Scheich for a second. During Scheich's sentencing hearing, the judge didn't hold anything back. The judge berated him for his actions.
They knew not to meet an adult male by themselves. They knew how to defend themselves against that kind of danger. So they did not know how to protect themselves against you because, again, they thought you were their peer, their friend, and because you gained their trust.
And the judge, by the way, also read a victim impact statement. It was written by one of Scheich's victims. And she said, "I am supposed to feel safe in school, and I no longer feel safe in a place that I used to. I'm so guarded that anyone who tries to talk to me or get to know me, I shut it down. I never believe what anyone says anymore. My trust is so broken that even if I want to believe someone, I can't." Parker, I'll give you the final reaction to this as we close out this case.
It's absolutely heartbreaking. These young individuals' lives are going to be influenced and affected for the rest of their lives. And there are so many statistics as far as the effects of childhood sex abuse on an individual for the rest of their lives. The only fortunate thing here is that this individual has been charged. He's going to spend a lot of time behind bars. And for these survivors, I hope that they can begin their healing process through appropriate counseling. I hope, too, that the school and these individuals are held accountable. The school had a grown man for over 50 days participating in school events, classroom events, interacting with their students. And I believe there is absolute negligence, if not gross negligence, on the school's behalf. And the school, too, needs to be held accountable.
Kind of hard to imagine this happen. It really, really is. Parker Stinar, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate your perspective as always. And good seeing you.
Good seeing you. Take care.
All right, everybody, what a case. Thank you so much for joining us here on Sidebar. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. Speak to you next time.